Public Protector Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane has confirmed the fears expressed by many that government's massive COVID-19 relief program would be muddied by corruption. In her presentation on her findings yesterday, the Public Protector addressed the outcomes of at least 36 cases, 5 of them relating to the procurement of irregularities. Government has allocated around 500 billion rands in emergency funds for emergency procurement. Mkhwebane found evidence of improper conduct and maladministration by the Department of Water and Sanitation officials. Another highlight of her presentation was her instruction to the Gauteng Department of Housing and Human Settlements to rebuild the home of a Pretoria man after red ants had actually burnt it down erroneously, we understand. To talk to us about her investigations and many other related issues, Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane joins us now live via Zoom. Advocate Mkhwebane, thanks very much for your time and welcome to the AM report. You know, often when you release some of the findings into your reports, many people, perhaps even the media, are guilty of looking out for prominent names to come out, you know, the big cases that you're after, often losing sight of, I guess, what many people are calling the bread and butter issues, you know, issues around, for instance, that Pretoria man whose house had to be rebuilt, issues around maladministration and the likes. Give us a sense of how you, I guess, are trying in some instances to keep focused on those very critical issues.
You know, that's what the Public Protector is all about. As Chief Justice Mkhwebane said it, that we are like the public is like a biblical David facing the Goliath, which is the state. So we are here to protect the public indeed, because hence 95% of our complaints relates to bread and butter issues. Because this man from Tshwane, whose house was destroyed by the red ants, wouldn't be receiving or wouldn't be having another house built for him by human settlement if possibly he was fighting the state on his own. So that's what the Public Protector is all about. And our services are free. This man has not paid any cent for him to fight the state. So it's so unfortunate that most of the time, sometimes our reports are taken on review when we are trying to protect the member of the public whose rights have been violated because of this abuse of power or because of maladministration.
I mean, since you've already brought it up, perhaps we might as well head there. I mean, several of your reports have been brought under review, some of them set aside in quite a scathing way. Do you have any potential concerns about what this is doing perhaps to the integrity of the office, particularly at the level of perception, right? So many of us who aren't necessarily knee-deep in how the law works might perceive this as perhaps, you know, the Public Protector not necessarily knowing what she's doing. What's your response to those perceptions?
You know, it's perceptions, as you're saying, and I must say it's not a lot of those reports which are taken on review. A number of reports are implemented by various government departments. And again, I must indicate that even the state, when the state is taking those reports on review, it means the state is at war with its own citizens, because we issue these reports for the benefit of the public, and as well to assist government and the state to act within the prescribed laws. So I must also indicate that when the matter is set, or when a report is set aside in court, is for the loss of the very same citizen who's has been prejudiced by the conduct of whoever or the public servant. So I must also indicate that courts are there to interpret the law. Courts are there to assist and clarify the interpretation of whatever provisions of our laws are. So I don't think it's proper for South Africans to look into those decisions as a reflection on the integrity of the institution. Therefore, it also means if we are losing court cases, meaning even the very same legal representatives, advocates and attorneys, it means their credibility should be questioned. And I mean, if the judge's judgment is set aside by a higher court, no one will be saying this judge's credibility is questionable or this judge doesn't know the law. So I think that narrative is very, it's very wrong. And I think we should be focusing on what benefit the reports of the public protector are to the public, and how do we make sure as well, and even the courts and the judges, their role is to make sure that there's justice to whoever is impacted by the report of the public protector.
And I'm sure you can agree with me that the public isn't necessarily a homogenous group, and the findings will always safeguard someone's interests. And I guess that's where perhaps the conversation around whose interest is being safeguarded emerges. But you also mentioned how, you know, the setting aside of the report sometimes is the state being at odds with its own citizens. We saw an instance earlier this year where it appears that the office was at odds with some within, you know, the institution itself. I mean, you'll remember the Free State head of the Public Protector's Office, Siphello Samuel, I think it was March, delivering, I guess, what many people have described as quite damning allegations against you, speaking about interference and abuse of power, etc., etc. He was placed on suspension because the office then came out to say that this is because there's an issue hanging over his head. Are you able to bring us up to speed with, you know, how far the investigations looking into that matter actually are, and whether or not there's any prospects of Mr. Samuel getting back to work, given, I guess, the decay in the level of trust between him and the office?
You know, I'm here for the reports which I've issued. That is a human resource matter which I wouldn't even entertain. I think the acting CEO can deal with that, and the disciplinary action against Mr. Samuels, because as an institution, we've got policies which we have to comply with. And if an employee has violated those internal policies, we'll have to deal with. The reports I've issued here deal with the very same issue, where public servants are violating the relevant policies within their various institutions. Hence, we have these findings. So I wouldn't deal with that matter of Mr. Samuels. The disciplinary hearing, which was also delayed by him in the past, will take place, unfortunately, even now with this COVID-19 lockdown. We will still proceed with the matter. So I think I thought I took this interview to deal with the reports I've issued, and to also clarify our findings and why we close certain reports, why we have remedial actions in other reports.
Yeah, while I hear that, I'm sure you'll agree with me that issues surrounding the reports also have in some ways to do with operations within the Public Protector's Office. And that's why that question was being posed to you. It's also in the public interest to know perhaps about what some of the operations within the office are going about in some respects. But let's come back to the offices then. 13 of those reports have been closed, and many people might wonder what that actually means. Does it mean that you're no longer carrying on with those investigations, or are satisfied with what you found?
Yes, the 13 closed reports means that the complaint is not substantiated. There is no evidence supporting that particular allegation. Therefore, the matter is closed, and we've informed the complainant, and we've informed the implicated or the person complained against. And once I sign those closing reports, it's only the courts which can review them. I cannot review them myself. We call them functus officio. Once I take a decision, I cannot review my own decision. So it's matters like those. If a person is not happy, then they can go to court. And as I said that, I mean, as an institution, we do the investigations without charging any costs or without or any fees to any person. So the other 36 reports, then we have findings, and that's where we have issued those reports so that we can remedy whatever maladministration which has been happening in those particular institutions. And as I said, that these reports, once they are issued, they are they are available on our website, and this is an opportunity for other institutions and public servants to go through our website to also understand our work and also make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes which have been committed by other institutions.
Thank you very much for your time. Certainly appreciate it. We'll have to leave things there, at least for now. I imagine, of course, we'll continue discussing some of the work that is being done within your office. Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane there is, of course, the head of the Public Protector's Office.